All right, what's up, everybody, and fucking welcome to episode number 42 of Uncovering Unexplained Mysteries. And if you hadn't been able to tell from the intro, this is not a family-friendly family-friendly? Oh my god, that's racist. Family-friendly podcast. I'm Josh Cannon. I'm here with Mike, my loyal, trusty sidekick, and we're two guys who have strong opinions on things. And that's about as far as it goes. There's not a whole lot of facts or scientific evidence here, so if we say something that offends you or you don't find accurate, then just take it in the form of entertainment, which is really what this podcast is supposed to be anyway. How's it going, Mike? How's your week been?
It's been really good, actually. I've actually been making a lot of progress recently. I had my first job interview in years today. I went and did an interview at a local Walmart. I didn't get the job, but I made such a great first impression that the manager is going to speak to other managers to see if they can give me another job in a different area. The job I applied for and I went in an interview for was grunt work, going out and unloading the truck and stocking, shelves and stuff like that. Ultimately, I did not really think that was best for me, but I'm at the point where I'm like, I'll take an interview and I'll take a job. So it's like I'm not really that picky anymore. But apparently it made a good first impression. And also the interview went really great. I mean, I had not taken an interview or done an interview in a long time. And it was just very natural. I wasn't freaked out. I wasn't nervous or anything. So I think that'll pay off in the future because then I'll do that more. If I go to do another interview, then I'll have actually have had an interview recently, so I know how to handle it.
It's fun. Did they ask you that stupid ass fucking question that every employer asks an interviewee? So what? Why do you want this job, or what brings you to Walmart in particular?
No.
Oh, thank God. That was always. I wish they would get rid of that question, honestly, because that is the stupidest question in the world. Because it is. Well, dipshit, I don't have money right now, and you guys are willing to give me money for services I'm going to render to you. So, that's really, and you're the only one in my area hiring, so that's what I feel I can bring to Walmart is my desperate need for money and you having money to give me. You dumbass. Why do you think I want the job, God.
Well, I mean, the stuff that he asked me, though, I liked. He asked, are there any instances of customer service, when you went out of your way to help somebody? And then I mentioned that I actually did when I was working at AMC. I went and helped this guy who was distraught because he had lost his wallet in the theater. And I was about to go on my break, but I decided to stay a little bit longer to help him search for his wallet. And I found it. And he gave me a giant bear hug. And I remember that. And also, I actually like working with people. I like working with customers. I haven't had that many bad experiences with the customers because majority of my experiences with the customers were actually good. The bad experiences I had were with coworkers or with management. That's what I had, or corporate. So I'm one of those people that understands the customer is not mad at me. They're mad at the situation. It just comes across as they're mad at me. And the worst thing you can do as a customer service representative is to take that personally. And that'll just make your job even more frustrating or even more of a chore than it already is. And it doesn't have to be. It's all about the mindset. If you're going into your customer service job, you're like, I hate my job, I hate the customers, they all suck, they're all horrible, then that's how it's going to be because you're going to focus most of your mindset and most of your mind power, so to speak, on how bad the customers are going to be today.
Yeah, I mean,
that's all you're going to remember.
Yeah, it's all about your inner mood. I remember back when I worked at CVS Pharmacy just as a cashier, and I did that for 6 years. That was like the worst job ever. Historically, it's the worst job as far as like any kind of opportunity for pay raises or anything. There was actually an article that came out recently which explained to the world something that I already knew to be true, is that at CVS, you get a raise cap of 2% a year of what you make. So it comes out to something around like 15 cents or 20 cents raise, something like that a year. It's insulting. And they say, oh, well, that's
like the movie theater. There's
really?
not a lot of opportunity for a raise from what I noticed when I was there and AMC. And I think part of why they ended up letting me go or firing me was also that it was like 10 cents. I was going to had a 10 cents raise. I was up for a 10-cent raise. And I guess since I was not in management yet, they didn't really want to do that. And that was my first full-time job. So there were a lot of things that now I would realize that, okay, it might be time for me to quit because it seems like they're trying to set me up for something. Or I would have actually stood up for myself more and I would not have waited for the managers to fix the situation. I would have been like, all right, you're telling me I'm better off as an usher. Then let's get this taken care of. Let's switch shifts tomorrow. Let's do something. I'll go back as an usher. You think I'm valuable there. I like working here. So let's get this worked out. But that's not really what happened. So it's just one of those things. It's, I was a newbie. I didn't have experience in those kind of things.
Well, that whole system,
now I do.
That whole system is a business model, actually. The capping you at only being able to make a certain amount. They want you to quit so they can just hire somebody else who's more hungrier, who's willing to do it for that cheap amount of money. It's to kind of weed out the people who have been there too long because they're hoping that the people who have been there a long time are going to be like, fuck this, I'm not making any money. They'll leave. They'll get someone else in there who isn't going to be as ambitious to, be like, hey, give me some more shit. I've been here for a while. And
see, my situation right now, I'm just like, give me a job.
Yeah,
because
I've been there.
Mean, I have, I'm going to go back to school, but I would like to get some money before I do that. Extra money in my pocket, in my savings account. So I'm sick of sitting around the house. So,
dude, honestly, I wish. I mean, I can't really afford it with the new house and everything, but God, I wish I had like at least 1 or 2 extra days off than what I have now. I could get so much more shit done. Like I'm barely able to get anything done now. Anything I am able to get done is always like an amazing feat, in my opinion. Yeah.
And speaking of that, that's why this podcast is delayed. It's my fault. I apologize. Just had busy with going. Had a full day on Thursday, just going in and doing stuff with my parents. I went to WSU Vancouver campus, and I set up my advisor appointment with my advisor, which I'm going to go in and do this Tuesday, next Tuesday. And I got the call from Walmart that day. And so today, I had to go in and do an interview with Walmart. And on Wednesday, I did the job fair. Thursday, it was Wednesday. I did the job fair at Goodwill, which is where I met the people that were hiring at the local Walmart. So, yeah, I'm hoping that because the lady that I met with at the job fair, she knows the guy that I talked with today, that maybe they'll get something going. I won't know I won't know anything until Monday or Tuesday because they aren't going to be able to call me back and get all the information ready until that time. So I'm just waiting for a phone call, really. I'm not going to apply for another job until, I like the fact that it's closer and I could just walk there. And
you should have asked her if she was a fan of Unsolved Mysteries. And if she was, be like, I just so happen to be the co-host of a very popular podcast.
And we're also on Patreon.
Then she'd be like, wait a second, you're making money off Patreon? Why the fuck do you need this job? And then you could be like, ma'am, why did you swear at me? And then you could like have some litigation kind of thing. You could make money through lawsuits. Okay, this has gone on about long enough for probably most people's desire. Although we could probably keep bullshitting longer if we wanted to. My week was just busyness, gigs, bullshit. Although I did ride my bike for the first time around my new neighborhood, and man, what an underrated experience that is. Just riding your bike with the wind blowing through your hair.
So riding your bicycle.
Yeah, exactly. That was so fun.
Girl, I want to ride my bike.
Went through my hair. As Mike sang the soundtrack to old Queen
ride
song.
my bicycle, I want to ride my bike. Bicycle.
Yep, and the people are tuning out at an alarming rate. I hear them tuning out, even though hasn't even been released yet. As of us recording it right now, I can preemptively hear it. No, I don't know. I could go into
people don't like Queen.
No, they're like, what the fuck? I like the podcast. I really wanted to like it, but they just take too long with the chit chat and just get to the story already. Fine, damn it.
That's what we're doing. How about we get to the Men in Black?
So much singing. Here come the Men in Black.
Men in Black. Anyway, it's fun. So we want you guys to have fun. So we're having fun. Hopefully you guys.
It's Friday, motherfucker. You don't got to work for at least the next 3 days with the Easter and all that. So chill out.
Damn.
Well,
okay. Anyway,
saying, you know.
So we have the Men in Black, which actually is not just a movie starring Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith. Apparently, there are some theories out there, and people have said that they've actually seen the real Men in Black.
Well, you know, the movie had to be based off something. You know what I mean?
It was actually based on a comic book.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you know, the comic book had to be based off something.
Yeah, it probably is based off the Men in Black sightings.
Well, you're like, well, you know, the comic book was based off a newspaper cartoon. Well, you know, the newspaper cartoon had to be based off something, and then an hour into this, we get to like the beginning of time. Anyway.
So, in popular culture and UFO conspiracy theories, Men in Black, the MIB, are supposed men dressed in black suits, claiming to be government agents who harass or threaten UFO witnesses to keep them quiet about what they may have seen. It is sometimes implied that they may be aliens themselves. The term is also frequently used to describe mysterious men working for unknown organizations, as well as various branches of government allegedly designed to protect secrets or perform other strange activities. The term is generic, used for any unusual, threatening, or strangely behaved individual whose appearance on the scene can be linked in some fashion with a UFO sighting. Several alleged encounters with the Men in Black have been reported by UFO researchers and enthusiasts, and we will be discussing a couple of those in the podcast. UFOologists are talking about how the Men in Black figure prominently in UFOlogy and UFO folklore. In the 1950s and the 1960s, UFOologists adopted a conspiratorial mindset and began to fear that they would be subject to organized intimidation and retaliation for discovering the truth of UFOs. In 1947, Harold Dahl claimed to have been warned not to talk about his alleged UFO sighting on Maury Island by a man in a dark suit. In the mid-1950s, the ufologist Albert K. Bender claimed that he was visited by men in dark suits who threatened and warned him not to continue investigating UFOs. Bender believed the Men in Black were secret government agents tasked with suppressing evidence of UFOs. Are you sure you weren't on a bender, Albert? And that's why you thought you saw some people. Maybe it was like just some Jehovah's Witnesses knocking at your door. You just assumed that they were
or some
Men in Black.
Some like Muslims or something with the bow tie and the suit, you know.
The ufologist John Keel claimed to have had encounters with the Men in Black and referred to them as demonic supernaturals. That's quite the word. That's quite the word pairing. With dark skin and or exotic facial features. And according to ufologist Jerome Clark, reports of Men in Black represent experiences that don't seem to have occurred in the world of consensus reality. Try staying ufologist and then all of this other stuff. I mean, forgive me for some
of this. No, you've done better than what I would have done. I can tell you that right now.
So historian Aaron Goulas wrote during the 1970s, 1980s, and 1990s that UFO conspiracy theorists would incorporate the Men in Black into their increasingly complex and paranoid visions. And in his article, Gray Barker, My Friend the Mythmaker, John C. Sherwood claims that in the late 1960s, at the age of 18, he cooperated with Gary Barker and urged him to develop a hoax, which Barker subsequently published about what Barker called Black Men, 3 mysterious UFO inhabitants who silenced Sherwood's pseudonymous identity, Dr. Richard H. Pratt. Black Men, really?
That's racist.
So anyway, this is a segment that was on a later season of Unsolved Mysteries in 1997. And it's on the box set.
Yes.
And on the UFOs box set that you can get separately, which happens to be the easiest one and the most cheapest one you can get of the Unsolved Mysteries DVD sets.
That's fucking surprising given how shitty the Miracles one was.
Yeah, I know. You would think the Miracles one would be the easiest one since it's not really the best set. But yeah, that's one of the hardest ones to get, along with Strange Legends. So this segment featured interviews with two people, a man and a woman, who claimed to have seen or encountered the Men in Black. The first one was Ray Munez, and he was a man who claimed to have encountered aliens many different times and actually set up his own public access show on local television. It was something like the UFO Report or something like that.
Now, what kind of loser goes out and starts some kind of like just low grade show talking about paranormal stuff and mysterious things, and just does it maybe from their bedroom, and you'd have to be a pretty big loser to do a show about that. And maybe some of your facts aren't always correct, and you offend people sometimes. And I mean, you'd have to be
where this is going.
You'd have to be a pretty big loser. So I don't know what this Ray guy was thinking, but me and Mike would never do anything like that.
Yeah.
As the crickets chirp.
So Ray received a video from a person who said that the video showed a UFO in the sky, and they actually show the video in the segment, and it looks like one of your typical sort of like maybe UFO videos, but it might just be a plane or something.
Yeah.
But apparently this caused some controversy because a few days later, a mysterious group of unknown individuals known as the Men in Black arrived at Ray's workplace, and he worked as a auto mechanic, or he worked as a detailer. He worked on doing stuff with cars, which is kind of crazy. He's like a car guy, and then on his free time, he's obsessed with UFOs and hosts some show.
Well, they show a picture of him during the segment that he was kind of like a local celebrity in that paranormal world, and it's got him like with this with some black slacks on and this like dress shirt, and he's like standing in front of this nice car, and he looks like like a wannabe Art Bell or some coast to coast AM like kind of guy. Like it was kind of comical because he was taking himself very seriously in the picture, but it looked just very corny.
So he says that the Men in Black arrived at his workplace, asked him to go to a building to give him a document. And they gave him this document, and it looked like something from the IRS, but there was something fishy about it. It didn't really look like it was an official document. He returned to his home, and he found that his house had apparently been searched by the Men in Black. However, the video surprisingly was still in the home. How he knows that the Men in Black are the ones that did it, I don't know. It could have been just some random burglar. Also, this is the other witness that's interviewed seems a little bit more credible to me, because he already seems like he has, a little bit of a bias, because he's a UFO guy.
Right.
He hosts some show on public access. I mean, he has a lot to gain by just making up some crazy story about getting involved with the Men in Black and seeing them, and they were searched his house and so on.
Well, I want to talk about the segment just a little bit, because this was like later on in Unsolved Mysteries, and you can tell by
I do not care for the way this segment is shot.
Yeah,
for the most part.
They shot it a lot differently. You can definitely tell this is later on in the show, because it's they show like the reenactment of him in his garage of this detailing place that he works at, and it's almost like the frame rate is cut in half to give this real choppy movement, kind of thing. Like it's supposed
and then
to
it starts slowing down.
Yeah, and it's real like overexposed like the film, so it's real white
I hate
and
that.
washed out.
I hated that.
Yeah.
I hated that so much. This overexposure and it just all this just white blinding light.
And I'm guessing they did it like that to make the Men in Black look even more faceless and featureless, which they kind of did. And they like all showed up in these black trench coats and these hats and these sunglasses, and they're like, they give him a paper, and he's like, am I being audited? And the guy, the Men in Black, he just kind of like grins and he looks at the other guys and he goes, just show up. And so, the guy gets all of his tax shit together, and he goes to this building that he assumes is the IRS, and they're like, thank you, you can go now. And he's like, well, aren't you going to check my papers? I brought all this stuff. And they look up and go, no, thank you, you can go now. And it's at that point that he goes home and he realized that it was a diversionary tactic. They just wanted him away from his house at that time so they could...
But I mean, like, the thing is like, oh, so they could search for the tape, which they could not find. I mean, I just kind of find that kind of bogus.
Oh, another detail I should mention about the segment. According to Ray, when he's looking at the letter, he looks up and they're gone. Like, he didn't hear them leave. He didn't see them leave. They show up, they hand him this letter, they chuckle at him, and then he looks up and they're gone. They're just gone. So that, this guy's recounting a tale at this point. We don't know. There's nothing to substantiate that. But, well, and I don't know, too, the fact that he is predisposed.
It's still interesting.
Yeah, it's still interesting if it's true.
Yeah.
I don't know if it is, but I mean...
I mean, like you said, predisposed. He's predisposed to this type of thing, so... there's a reason to have some doubts.
Yeah.
The next one, the second person who was interviewed, this seems a little bit more credible to me because she's on the outside. She's not into UFOs, as far as we know anyway. And this is just something that she ended up encountering on her travels.
This one just seems ridiculous to me.
It does seem ridiculous as well. So, I mean, a lot of these are kind of ridiculous, this Men in Black sightings. They probably could have had maybe more credible, like some of those ufologists that I mentioned on the Wikipedia page, or expanded it a bit more. It kind of, it was an interesting topic. I just felt like this felt kind of like filler for a certain episode.
It was a little bit of filler. I mean, they could have tied it into the Mothman thing a little bit.
Yeah, because they're actually, I had heard things about the Men in Black being sighted around the bridge and things like that.
Well, yeah,
when
after
the Mothman
sightings were really going around Point Pleasant, West Virginia, there was a lot of people who showed up in suits, who were essentially just trying to silence the dispersion of information and to just scare people into keeping their mouths shut and stuff. So that was something that was mentioned in the Mothman episode.
Yeah.
But they never really got in depth,
No.
about who the Men in Black were. So I guess they figured it was worth doing a whole segment on, which again, I find this segment great. It's better than any Miracle segment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or
It's just
Love.
I would say it's good. If you compare it to something like the Allagash abductions or some of these other UFO Odyssey or some of these other ones, it's not as great as those, but it's still a good segment. I'm glad it's on the box set. And there's some other stuff that they also interviewed a couple skeptics who honestly said a lot of the things that I was thinking, like, oh, they might not really be aliens. That's probably an unlikely thing. It's probably these government types who are trying to get people to silence themselves or be quiet about, hush up about what they've seen and so on.
All right,
So-
you had me there for a little bit. Now you're gonna go around saying skeptics are denying the existence of aliens. Now I'm pissed. I don't like that. I don't like it. Yeah, this guy could be full of shit, but I don't know. I cling to aliens.
Well,
people.
I mean, if it is aliens, if it is an alien that's masquerading as a human being,
talk about the second story.
why would they not be able to find the tape?
Talk about the second.
So the
incident.
second story is from Colette Peters. She's from New York, and she's a figure skater who apparently witnessed some UFO type of phenomena. I don't really see how it's UFO phenomenon. I think that's just something that the wiki added there to make it sound more punchy, and because I don't remember hearing in this that she saw a UFO. But anyway, when she was 19, Colette was in New York City, walking on the street in the city, and she saw this strange man who was dressed like a Men in Black. It was the suit and the tie and the hat. And I remember this detail where she's like, I felt this presence of evil. And I turn around and then I see this Man in Black who has no apparent facial hair or imperfect features. He's got, a face that kind of looks like it's plastic, kind of made out of plastic, very smooth, unnatural looking. And he passes her. She said he didn't tell her a word, didn't say anything. And then she believes he was one of the Men in Black. Now I said it. This one is more credible, but maybe it's because it was just a little bit less detailed. But at the same time, it could be less credible than the first guy, than Ray, because there isn't much here. It's just I saw this guy who looked weird, and he was dressed in a suit.
Yeah, and she was saying like, she's like, he didn't say anything to me, but it was just the presence that he kept that communicated something to me of like evil or foreboding.
Yeah.
And then she said something that I thought was very millennial sounding. She goes, I felt almost harassed by his presence.
Oh my God.
No, that's
triggered.
Yeah, triggered. Yeah, that to me, that sounds like such a millennial thing. Like I just felt harassed by his presence. Like I feel like that's something that is kind of thrown around all the time now.
Sexually harassing me with his eyes underneath his sunglasses.
I mean, it's hard for me to even do the podcast knowing that Mike is a white male who is heterosexual. That offends me beyond anyone's belief. It's hard for me to get past that. I somehow do it every week. I don't know how.
Aren't you a white male?
What? No, it's not true. It's not true. Oh, damn it. It sucks. But yeah, no, that was crazy.
It's not that bad.
It's not that bad. Oh man, I could like get into so many like politically incorrect jokes right now, but I'm not going to.
Yeah, it was crazy, the Men in Black segments, but it was interesting. It's nice to know that there might be some sort of actual basis for something like Men in Black, the movie franchise. But yeah, I mean, there's another movie too with the Men in Black. I think it's called The Shadow Men. It's a lower budgeted movie. It's got Eric Roberts in the cast. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm curious about it because it's another Men in Black movie, but it's more along the lines of, okay, aliens who are masquerading as human beings and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it sucks. I kind of thought that we'd be able to squeeze a little bit more juice out of this one, but I don't really know what else to say about it. I mean, I think that there's definitely...
Do you believe the Men in Black?
Yes,
do you believe they exist?
I do, just from watching more kind of credible stories like the UFO Odyssey, where you had the radio DJ in Nashville, I believe, or no, Withville, Kentucky. That's becoming like a close second to one of my favorite UFO stories. Just the harassing phone calls the guy got from that old timer who used to be involved in the government, and how he's saying like they'll get you, any way they can. They'll put they'll use chemical warfare. They'll put it on your doorknobs. They'll put it on your steering wheel. My son died of leukemia. I watched him die because of this, that, and the other. And basically implicating that the government can actually do this stuff to you. And even after talking to Don Devereaux on episode number 19, which you guys should all go listen to, because I don't think people remember that I even did that, but I totally did. Don Devereaux was even telling me about how, when the people were after him, it was the mafia and all that, but they were going to make it look like an accident. They were going to make it look like, a pedestrian, or not pedestrian, but a driver, like someone driving a car down the road. They were going to just accidentally hop the curb and run them over or something like that. Just something to make it look like an accident. So these kind of things happen all the time where it's an apparent accidental, manslaughter kind of thing, but it was totally on purpose. Or if you're talking about chemical warfare, you just get some kind of disease and drop dead, and nobody really questions how it could happen, because I don't really hear much of like the government having the ability to give people diseases or doing that, but I know they have the ability to and could, I'm sure, after learning about this 26,000 pound bomb that they just had chilling in a warehouse for a decade, and they just unloaded it on Afghanistan. So they got all kinds of tricks up their sleeve. So having an agency out there to control information, absolutely, I absolutely believe in that. Do I think that I think on the Men in Black segment, they had this one guy in there who was talking about how it's either a secretive government agency, it's aliens, or it's a combination of the aliens working with the government, to control the information, which I thought was absolutely ludicrous to think that aliens would be like, exactly coming into like the, in Virginia, Langley, base in Virginia, wearing like,
I'm just imagining that,
wearing like a suit and a cup of coffee, like, hello, my name is Zorg. So what's on the agenda for today? Oh, well, we're trying to shut some people up in, wherever the hell, because they said they saw, one of you guys flying around outside trying to probe them. Darn it, I told Zorg Jr. not to fuck around with my saucer when I'm at work. I don't know why he's talking like that. I don't know.
That's just a popular culture thing.
Okay, sure. But yeah, no, I think it's a human agency that does control the info, and it is clandestine. But do I think it's alien beings? No, I don't know if we are actually communicating with them on that level yet. So
yeah, I don't think it's alien beings masquerading as humans either. But it might be a clandestine group, but part of me is thinking this might have been something that was more common in the 50s, 40s, and 60s type that era. I mean, look at how people are saying the Men in Black look. I mean, they're all spiffy dressed and stuff like that. I think maybe if the Men in Black still exists, they don't dress like that anymore, because it just makes them stand out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, and I mean, no one's going to want to answer the door if you're dressed like a man in black, because they're going to think that you're a Jehovah's Witness, and they don't want to know about the Watchtower or hear about, your Jehovah's Witness sales pitch. Not that there's anything wrong with that, people. I'm just saying, by and large, people usually don't answer the door if it's a Jehovah's Witness. Jehovah's Witness has never knocked on my door, though, I will say, the whole time I've
had them do it, and I've answered the door, and probably shouldn't have, but it's just frustrating because we have a sign that says no soliciting. I mean, but, people just don't read,
or they don't care.
Yeah, don't care is probably more like it.
I had this guy come up to my house a few days ago, and he knocked on my door. He was a nice read. God, what the fuck is with the inability to pronounce L's and saying R instead? Anyway, this nicely dressed black guy came up to my house. Why am I saying it angry now? I sound like I'm some racist. A black guy came up to my house, and I don't like it when he came up to my house, and I opened the door, and he hands me a can of Glade air freshener. That's the first thing. First thing he does, hands me a can of Glade air freshener.
That's hilarious. I'd be like, I would be thinking like, is he trying to tell me something?
Yeah, we can smell your punk ass all the way down the road. But no, I grab it, and he goes, well, this is a gift for you. And I go, oh, okay. What's your sales pitch here, buddy? Because nobody walks around giving out those cans of gold. Because, I mean, Glade air freshener shit, you can't just get that anywhere. Oh, wait, yeah, you can, and it's really cheap. Anyway, he was wanting me to come out to his car and look at some products that they were trying to sell. And if I did that, I could have that can of Glade air freshener. And I go, honestly, man, I don't have time right now. And he goes, well, when do you think you'll have time? And at that point, I'm like, dude, you're on my front porch. Go away. Like, you're not really in the position to ask me questions about, like, when I'm available to give you my time. But just to play along, I was like, honestly, dude, I'm not interested. And he goes, oh, okay. So he kind of like gestures his hand to like give me the air freshener back, and I'm like,
oh god, that's so awkward.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I have to give it back now. And he goes, yeah, you got to come look at the stuff to get the air freshener. And I was like, damn, man, that's pretty cruel. And I was like, well, good luck to you. And I like slammed the door and I locked that shit. And I'm like, man, this is a weird neighborhood I moved into.
That I've never heard of that before. That's bizarre.
Yeah, nor had I. That's why I didn't go out to the dude's car, because I'm not risking anything happening to me over some fucking air freshener. I mean...
Oh, man, Glade air freshener, my favorite. Get in the car.
Get in the car, motherfucker.
There's nothing there. Yeah, motherfucker.
Damn, if only I hadn't liked the smell of artificial chemicals so much, then I might be alive today. No, I'm sure it was fun. I'm sure some stupid crap that he was trying to peddle that I wouldn't have been interested in. My whole thing is, like, if it's some mail order thing or some kind of thing that you're selling out of your car, why wouldn't I just go to the store that's 2 minutes down the road and just buy it if I want it that bad?
Yeah.
Like, what service are you really offering me here? Because it's not a service of convenience. Anyway, we're getting off topic. So our next case that we're going to be talking about is Gertrude Pruitt. I chose this one because I was watching the Amazon Unsolved Mysteries episodes, and I just I don't know, I liked this one. I was like...
I've always liked this one. This is one I remember watching on the VHS rips, and it always stood out to me. It's a fraud case. So that's good. Fraud's always and that's good. A good sign.
Yeah.
And it's horrible. Just...
Fraud, that's always good. Murder, got that, fantastic.
Check.
That's how you have to start talking. When you do true crime podcasts, you have to like change your mindset a little bit, and you have to be like, oh, this is a fantastic murder. Wait till you'll hear about this one. She totally got decapitated, and then they found her head in someone's mailbox. It was awesome. And then you have to stop yourself and go, wait a second. I just said all that shit was awesome. What's wrong? What is happening to me? But it's like, you say it's awesome for the story, the tale.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is an awesome segment because of how absurd and how hilarious it is. And it's not hilarious in terms of, oh, so bad it's hilarious, or, oh, God, it's embarrassing. It's just...
the premise.
The premise, and it's this kindly old grandmother who swindled all these people out of $3 million. All right, total.
So the segment starts off with Robert Stack, paraphrasing here, but he goes, even a grandma baking you goodies can take your money and run. Meet Gertrude Pruitt.
It's right from the beginning. It just starts off great.
Yeah, golden. Like gold is about to rain down upon me. So from 1979 until 1981, this grandmotherly 70-year-old con woman ran what appeared to be a very successful investment business in Beverly Hills. This crafty granny, and this is how they write it on the show. This crafty granny, like that's even Unsolved Mysteries, even back in the 90s, they knew this was like, something to have fun with.
I bet Robert Stack had to do multiple takes of this. I'm just imagining him trying to keep a straight face while reading these lines.
I just wish I could have been on the set when they were shooting this and see him do this live and read these lines live.
That would have been really cool.
That would have been so cool. This crafty granny hid her seedy business activities behind her facade of Southern hospitality and homemade fruitcake while making off with $3 million of her investors' money. Cecil Truchell, Gertrude's former employee, said, "You couldn't help but like her. And when you met the woman, she was so smooth and trusting and very soft sell that you almost thought of her as family. She was a homey businesswoman, even though you knew she had the business skills. She also never lost her touch in the kitchen. I'm not a big fruitcake lover, but they were delicious, to be honest with you." Gertrude claimed that her investment opportunities came from special connections from textile mills in the South. Michael Hirsch, one of the investors, said, What impressed me the most is that although the returns seemed almost too good to be true, Gertrude seemed like such a loving, sincere person that it seemed like a good investment and that she could do no harm to her investors. Nothing was too good for Gertrude's clients. She often hired limousines to bring her prospective clients to her posh office building. One of those investors was a woman who had a weakness for her charm and fruitcake. We will call her Myrna. Quoting Myrna here, Gertrude selected a really magnificent outline just for selling carpet. This place was 2 stories high, referring to the office building. Then they show the lavish office building, and yeah, it looks more like a mansion than it does an office building. She said, well, my first impression of Gertrude was that she was sizing me up. And it shows Gertrude walking down the stairs in the reenactment, and yeah, I mean, it's kind of like before she even says anything, she's kind of giving her the old, looking up and down kind of thing. But Myrna goes on and says, but because she was Southern and warm, said, I forgot all about the fact that I was being sized up, and I was just brought into her world of how bright she was and how able she was. I originally invested about $20,000, but as I watched the operation from the balance sheets that were coming out monthly and that people were getting their interest, I invested more. Gertrude she really was the office. She was out there working every day, early in the morning until very late at night, handling the customers, handling the money. And Harold, he was in his office, but he was, we never knew what he was doing. Gertrude's 40-year-old son Harold was her partner in the business, but had very little contact with the clients. He was a towering, unpleasant man, a stark contrast to his mother. And now it goes back to Cecil saying, even though I was their banker for 2.5 years, I never even really met Harold for the first 1.5 years. He was kind of the person who you would not have trusted or bought a car from, you might say. Myrna invested $100,000 before she had her first inkling that something was wrong.
Jeez, $100,000. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of cheddar.
Yeah. So she's saying, sick as I was inside, about this feeling that she was starting to get that something was wrong, she goes, I was still playing it as a friend, which I thought she was. It was impossible for Myrna to believe that Gertrude could con her, so instead of pressing the issue, she took a fruitcake and accepted a lunch date.
It's just the fruitcake. I mean, that's one of the things that just stood out the most to me about this. It's just how many people just loved her fruitcake. I mean, that must be some fruitcake. I mean, I don't like fruitcake at all.
Nobody likes fruitcake. It's one of the most despised yet continued to be made products out there. I mean, the marketers of fruitcake did a really bang-up job back in the day because, god damn it, if that stuff still ain't around.
Yeah, because they think it's a holiday tradition, and it is for a lot of families, but it's one of those things that's like, yeah, it's kind of like daylight savings time. It's like, yeah, it's something we have to do, but does anybody really like it?
Exactly. So in the reenactment, she goes into Gertrude's office and she's like, my check bounced. What the fuck? Well, she didn't say what the fuck. She's like, that would have been hilarious. They never cuss on the show except that one time only where she goes into the office. She goes, my check bounced. What the fuck? And then they never swear a single time after that. Just that one weird random time they write that line for her. But Gertrude was like, oh, no, it's okay. I have a check coming tomorrow, blah, 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 blah. So that's when she...
Have a fruitcake, dear.
You're right. Myrna's bad check was not the only one. The Pruitt switchboard was jammed with angry callers. Both Gertrude and Harold made themselves scarce. Finally, employee Cecil Truchell secretly contacted the Pruitt's accountant and received a rude shock. The financial statements the Pruitts were showing investors were completely different than the accountant's records. Quoting Cecil here, it was at that particular time that I knew there was serious problems, and I just didn't know where they were stashing the money. So at night, sometimes between the wee bitty hours of 1 and 3 a.m., I made midnight raids. I found every canceled check, every statement that had been paid, removed everything out of the office, and by the end, I had about 4 cardboard boxes of papers. Because Cecil's friends and family invested heavily with the Pruitts, Cecil confronted Harold with the evidence. That's kind of great. So what, if his friends and family didn't invest, he wouldn't have said shit? Anyway, Cecil goes, he, referring to Harold, the son, the other business partner, he told me all of the people had done nothing but made investments, and there was a risk to be made. And I looked to him and I said, Harold, they made an investment on a pack of lies that you sold to them, and that's called fraud. Cecil reported the Pruitts, but they had disappeared along with the money. 3 years later, the FBI tracked down Harold Pruitt and brought him to trial. None of the investors' money was recovered. Sweet motherly Gertrude was never found. Based on the trial testimony of 10 victims, Harold was convicted on 20 counts of mail fraud. And then there's an update. Gertrude Pruitt has been captured. Minutes after the segment aired, she was arrested at a Bakersfield, California residence as a housekeeper named Martha Gray. She pleaded to 8 counts of mail fraud and was ordered to pay restitution to her former investors. Now, here's the shitty part that a lot of people don't often understand, because thankfully they're not involved in these kind of things, but I have kind of been involved where someone did kind of scam me out of a guitar, so I do kind of know about this a little bit. When somebody who screws you over is ordered to pay you back, whether it's restitution or whatever, all that basically does is give you what's called a license to hunt. You can harass them for your money within reason. You can go through all kinds of hassles to get perhaps a levy placed on their account, their bank account. You can do all this and that and the other. But it's not like, you know, you might watch these shows like Judge Joe Brown or Judge Judy or whatever, and they're ordered to pay, you know, $500, $600, $700 to the other party involved for, you know, whatever, if they're found guilty. That doesn't mean that right after the show, the guilty party just writes the other party a check. That doesn't happen. In fact, it's rare that it does happen. Just because you have a judgment against you, I mean, like I said, unless you can get the person's bank account levied, meaning that money is taken from their account every week, like say they have a job and they make a paycheck, portions of their paycheck are taken out every week and sent to you. But that's a whole nother thing you got to go through to get that done, from my understanding, which is very limited. And as I said at the beginning of the podcast, me and Mike know very little about what we're talking about oftentimes. So don't take any of this to the bank, no pun intended. But yeah, you know, if these people are convicted in court and they have to pay restitution, that doesn't mean they're going to pay it. That means, yeah, they were ordered to, but they don't have to. And if they don't have any money, if they've spent it all, well, you can't squeeze blood from a stone. So it's the people are out of the money one way or the other. They're fucked one way or the other. Kind of like the log cabin fraud that we talked about a few episodes previously, where people invest a lot of money in these log cabins that never materialized. And even though the guy was arrested, that money's gone. It's just gone. And there's nothing, if the guy doesn't have the money, or the woman in this case doesn't have the money to pay it back, then you're just up shit's creek without a paddle, you know? So.
Yeah, it sucks. But I still am thinking about that fruitcake. You know, I'm like, you know, I don't like fruitcake, but I want to try that fruitcake.
Yeah.
I want to try Gertrude's fruitcake.
Yeah, you know.
See if it's as good as advertised. And speaking of that, I would not be surprised if some of the people that asked her for money, she just sent them a fruitcake.
Yeah. Well, you know, our moderator on our fantastically interactive and awesome Facebook group, Uncovering Unexplained Mysteries, just search in the group section on Facebook. It's a really great group. You should join it. Thomas Hatfield, he actually he posts questions every few days. And one of his questions was, what would be one prop that you would want from Unsolved Mysteries? This may not be a prop from the show Unsolved Mysteries, but I would love one of Gertrude's fruitcakes. Because now I am very curious as to what they might taste like, because they seem to be... But fruitcake's just basically, it's like yellow cake or vanilla cake with just fruit in it, right? From my understanding.
I don't know if it's yellow. I remember it being more shaped like a bundt cake.
Yeah.
With
cake,
you know,
cherries,
with dried fruit and other stuff in it.
Let's look up fruitcake on old Wikipedia here.
It's also a slang term for, you know, crazy people or
homosexual.
Well, that's
Oh, isn't it? I don't know.
that's fruit. I think that's fruitcake is like they use. I've never heard that for a homosexual gay person. I've heard it for fruitcake. You're a fruitcake, as in you're nutty, but you're as nutty as a fruitcake.
Not saying that there's anything wrong with being a homosexual, and not saying that I've ever called homosexual.
And fruitcakes have more nuts.
All right, let's take a look at this here. Fruit cake is a cake made with chopped, candied fruit and or dried fruit, nuts, and spices, and occasionally soaked in spirits, aka alcohol. A cake that simply has fruit in it as an ingredient can also be colloquially called a fruit cake. In the United Kingdom, certain rich versions may be iced and decorated. I think the fact that they candy the fruit is what makes me not like it, because it's like all sweet and gushy and like... I think if it was just like... just normal pieces of fruit, maybe that wouldn't be so bad. Jesus, they got like fruitcake from all over the world here. Oh my gosh, it says see also under Wikipedia depression cake. Depression cake is a type of cake that was commonly made during the Great Depression. The ingredients include little or no milk, sugar, butter, or eggs.
Oh my god, that's so sad.
Because the ingredients were then either expensive or hard to obtain. Similar cakes known as war cake. They avoided ingredients that were scarce. Oh my god.
That's so depressing.
Someone please bake a depression cake and post it on our Unsolved Mystery, or Unexplained Mysteries Facebook group. Someone please do that. I want to see a depression cake made with very little milk, sugar, butter, eggs, and I want someone to eat it and then their grimace of just total displeasure as they're eating it. That would be well.
And if you want to bake a fruit cake, you can do that as well.
Yeah, that's true. Anything else to add on this one?
Well, I mean, also Gertrude herself was a delight to watch in this segment. The actress who played her did a very convincing job playing this character. You could see why people were enthralled by her. They were tricked by her because, she just has this big personality. She's likable.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Great actress who played the Gertrude Pruitt in the segment. They there's a general rule of thumb on Unsolved Mysteries, the show, and it is that the more actor that they show in the segment, the better they did, the better a job they did at acting, and the less they show and the more voiceover work that Robert Stack does, the shittier the acting was. That's always a rule of thumb. So if anytime you're watching an episode of Unsolved Mysteries and they show a lot of the actor and their dialogue, then that means that they did a pretty damn good job, with the part. But if you see the actor and they say one line and then all of a sudden Robert Stack's narration is over it, even though the actor's still talking and stuff, you can pretty much take to the bank the fact that they did a shitty job, and you can see that sometimes, especially when it's the actors or the real people portraying, themselves in the scenes. They're usually not great. But it's weirder when they are good, like when the people who portray themselves, like who participate in the reenactments. That's weird when they're like really good. It's almost like, were you making it all up? Maybe you're an actor at the game of life and you really did kill that lady. I don't know. All right, let's move on to the last segment here, and this is one that was one of our Patreon suggested segments here, so that is why I'm covering it. But I also feel like it's a pretty, I don't know, my personal opinion of this is like it's a missing persons case like many other missing persons cases, but I think the fact that the person we're talking about, which is Jodi Huisentruit, by the way, I think the fact that she was a pretty young white chick who had blonde hair is one of the main reasons why it got so much attention as it did. Hate to say it, folks, but that's kind of a thing that happens in the news. If you're pretty,
well, she's also an anchor woman. I think that's one of the. I don't think it's just she's pretty and young. I think the main thing is she was an anchor woman. She was on local television. She was on TV. People saw her on television a lot.
Yeah,
and
but you know,
fell in love with her.
We've covered so many missing persons segments, and if it's a pretty young female, that's always mentioned by the people in the story. Like, she was so pretty and she blah, blah, blah. Like, that's, like,
Yeah.
any kind of meaningful character trait in someone's, you know, being and who they are. Like, that means anything, you know? That's just what your physical description is. That doesn't mean shit, you know? What does that mean, you know? You haven't... It doesn't.
Well, yeah, when they were talking about, you know, taming the leopard and stuff like that, yeah.
Oh, she was so beautiful. Oh, so if it was somebody unattractive, older, and they went missing, and you see how those are treated too. It's kind of like literally like the older people who go missing, like the middle-aged dudes who just go missing. It's like, yeah, we don't know what happened. It was crazy. They were there 1 minute, now they're not. Hope they come back someday. But if they don't, fuck it. It's just kind of like, you know, well, whatever. But then when it's this, it's like, oh, she was so pretty, and maybe if she comes back, she'll go out on a date with me. You know, I don't know.
I mean, it's like Elizabeth. Was it Elizabeth Smart? Was that her name? The one that the young teenage girl who went missing and then was found later in the same neighborhood?
Dead? Was she found dead?
No, she was found alive.
Oh, I don't remember. You're going to have to give me more info than that.
It might not be Elizabeth Smart. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, folks, I apologize. But I know it was a fairly recent case.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not trying to be all like racial or PC or whatever the fuck you want to call it when I say, oh, she was white or whatever. But I mean, it's kind of a statistical thing in the news. If you want to go look it up, you can. Or it might not be true. Again, that's why I made that statement at the beginning. I make statements. Sometimes they might not be true.
Just have a disclaimer that says, you know, we could be, theoretically speaking, talking about a bunch of bullshit. So
right. I mean, this could be an act where me and Mike are just playing characters right now who are way dumber than we actually are in real life. I mean, that's not what it is, but it could be, though. So keep that in mind. Keep in mind that Jesus is watching. That was weird.
That was weird and creepy.
Isn't that a song? Isn't that an old religion? Keep in mind that Jesus is watching.
I've never heard that song.
Which is weird because you're like super religious and you know all the Christian songs.
No, I don't.
Exactly.
But I mean, that song though, even if I had heard it, I'd remember it because of how creepy that song is. And just imagine that. Keep in mind, Jesus is watching.
God, I hope like not all the time.
At your bedroom window.
Jesus, could you turn your head for like 2 seconds while I change? For the love of God, I don't know. Jodi Huisentruit, everybody. I'm sorry, we're both a little slap happy tonight. It's Friday, and you know, whatever. Little sillier on this podcast than we might normally be.
I think that makes it better.
And you know what's funny is, even now, I'm still going to have to rush to a gig after this. I swear it never ends, because I've got yet another gig tonight, but this is at a different bar. Jodi Huisentruit. Mason City, Iowa is a quintessential small town, but since June of 1995, this homespun hamlet has been in mourning. Yellow ribbons everywhere symbolize that hopefully someday, one of Mason's most popular residents will be back. Jodi Huisentruit moved to Mason City in late 1993 and quickly became an active member of the community. She had many friends and no known enemies. The day that she vanished, she was scheduled to work her regular shift on the morning show. When she didn't arrive on that particular time, producer Amy Coons called her apartment, not recalled her apartment, she called her apartment. Quoting Amy here, she said, "Everything sounded normal, just like I had just woken her up." She goes, "What time is it?" You know, I said, "It's about 10 till 4. You need to come into work." She said, "How much time is left to produce on the show?" She was thinking the same, you know, she was aware she just didn't have enough time to get into work. When Jodi didn't show up by airtime, Amy anchored the news. And then she sent the first available person to go check on Jodi. I was halfway mad because I had to do all this stuff by myself. I was halfway worried because I thought, geez, what if she's laying in her apartment bleeding? Like maybe she hit her head in the bathtub or something. But never once did I think someone nabbed her outside of her apartment. Never once did I think that. Investigator Frank Stearns, keep this guy's name in mind, that Jesus is watching. Investigator Frank Stearns said, the officer arriving at the scene observed several of Jodi's personal items around her car. A quick search was done in and around the apartment for Jodi, but nobody found anything. End quote. Then private investigator Patrick McCarthy chimes in by saying her personal items, which appeared to be things she was bringing with her to work in preparation for that morning's newscast, were scattered all around her car, trailing away from the vehicle, which to all involved was a pretty good indicator that she was taken forcefully. By that afternoon, the Mason City Police launched a massive search aided by the FBI and the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigations. Search teams scoured the countryside, divers and police dogs covered the Winnebago River and its banks, but there was no trace of Jodi Huisentruit. The only clue was a white Ford Econoline van. It was seen around the apartment around the time that Jodi disappeared. I think like big white vans get a bad rep in this country. It's unfortunate because they're very useful vehicles, but you just can't drive a van, especially be a guy, especially a guy with a mustache. You just can't drive a van around anymore without people thinking shit. Too many people have abused it.
You can't be having windows that are tinted windows. You can't be driving around a white van with tinted windows
with
and
a
mustache.
With aviator sunglasses on. I mean,
I just pictured that in my mind right now.
I mean, you pretty much, if you see that, folks, if you see that trifecta, white van, mustache, aviator glasses, you might as well just call the cops right there and report the license plate number preemptively. Because even if they haven't done anything yet, they're going to. I mean, you just don't have a mustache, aviator sunglasses, and a white van and not do some seedy shit. So this van was seen, and they felt the need to report this poor van just because it was seen around the apartment, and it happened to be a big white van. To quote Pat McCarthy again, the most difficult aspect of this investigation to date has really been a lack of apparent motive for abduction, the lack of physical evidence involved in the crime scene, and the lack of any genuine eyewitnesses. It's been 8 months since the people in this quiet community put up the yellow ribbons and hung up the posters. The ribbons are now tattered. The posters faded. The people are trying to make sense of what happened to Jodi Huisentruit. We spent a lot of time and a lot of effort talking to people who knew Jodi. We've located nothing in her private life that would have put her at risk at all. No dark side to Jodi. She was as real and as all-American as she appeared to those who knew her and her viewers. Then Robert Stack gives details about how you can contact the police department and all that. And then this is
this is an extremely short segment.
Yeah.
I remember that even when I first saw this. I was like, oh, it grabbed me. Interesting. Oh, an anchor woman who goes missing. Okay, that's pretty juicy. And then it ends abruptly, and then I'm like, okay, it sounds like they could have gotten more out of it. And I also remember her car. And the reason why I remember her car is it's a Mazda Miata. And I remember that because my cousin, he got a Miata. And, Miatas are known around, not necessarily car enthusiasts or just people people know this pretty much, that they're chick cars. And so it's pretty funny for my cousin. The car he chose was a Mazda Miata. And even my aunts, they were all like, really? That's a chick car. What is he doing? And I remember a Robot Chicken sketch where it was a Back to the Future parody. And it was like making fun of the whole thing, or he made a time machine out of a DeLorean. And so what if Doc took that the wrong way and was like, okay, all right, I'll make it out of something else. You build a time machine out of a DeLorean? And then it comes back and it's like, you build a time machine out of a Mazda Miata? And then the sketch ends with Doc Brown. He shows up in a Batmobile. It's like, you made a time machine out of a Batmobile? That's cool. Can I have a ride? No, Marty, you had your chance.
I'm looking at a 1995 Mazda Miata right now, and it's kind of sporty looking, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't really look like, I mean, it's kind of tiny. Maybe that's why it would have a female connotations, because it's tiny and women are smaller than men.
But hey,
typically.
if you're a guy and you want a Mazda Miata, cool, own that shit.
Yeah, whatever. I'm not a car guy at all. I'm all about if it gets me a point A and point B, it's got air conditioning and it has room for all my DJ equipment. That's really all I care about. But I'm sure there's car enthusiasts out there who care more.
But yeah, I mean, I can see why this case is remembered by a lot of people. I mean, it's an anchor woman. She disappeared without a trace. So
that's the end of the segment, but not the end of the story. There's a whole lot of updates kind of going on with this, but the more frustrating aspect of it is that ultimately it's technically still a missing persons case, although there's a whole lot more stuff going on here. More info kind of came in semi-recently, and now I'm looking at some sources here that were sent to me by said Patreon guy, Eric Brown. What's up, Eric? How's it going? And if you want to support our Patreon page and perhaps get one of your own story suggestions on here, it's patreon.com/uncovering unexplained mysteries. So it goes on to say, Jodi Huisentruit, a beautiful blonde anchor woman. See, again, I don't know what it is about. Why do they have to...
Well, I mean, she is beautiful.
She is, but why the descriptions of beautiful blonde anchor woman? Like, that makes her anything special,
Or maybe that's when you say that, I mean, there's a certain picture.
The problem with our society, now imagine me wearing like a cardigan sweater, and I'm like, I'm clutching a saucer of sweet tea with two hands right now, and I'm sitting in like a fucking like really comfy like. You
got hipster glasses on.
Yeah. See, Mike, the problem with our society is that we over sexualize and that we put too much value into physical appearance, and that's what really triggers me about this article here. But no, anyway, on the morning she disappeared, producers of her Iowa television station notified the police when she missed her morning call. At her apartment, they found her car, the key snapped off in the lock, blood and the contents of her purse strewn on the ground. Now, they didn't mention blood on Unsolved Mysteries.
No, they didn't mention that, and they didn't mention the key being
snapped off.
Broken off.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a very curious thing.
Yeah, like almost like you got the key in the car and someone grabs you so hard and fast that it yanks the keys along with you and it snaps off in the lock. I mean, that's some power. That would have to be a pretty powerful force too, because keys are not the easiest thing to bend. So those were the last traces of Huisentruit, and there's been nothing but questions since. Now, recently, a fired officer in the Mason City Police Department is accusing 3 top officials involved in the investigation of having a hand in the 16-year-old mystery. Now, this is all conjecture at this point, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not making any accusations. This is all alleged. So get off my jock if you're legal in any way. Well, technically, that's slander, what you're saying, and you will be hearing from our lawyer. I am just reporting what they're alleging on this website. So anyway, this fired police officer, Maria Ohl, OHL, a 10-year veteran of the Mason City Police Department, has come out with allegations that Huisentruit's disappearance was an inside job. Ohl was fired by the department in early August. Before her termination, she'd already been having trouble within the department. She filed a discrimination complaint against the department in 2010. She claimed she was being sexually harassed and discriminated against based on her religion. Ohl is part of a church that recently sued the police department and got an $85,000 settlement. Okay, so there's already some sketchy shit kind of going on here in this Mason City or county or whatever. Then, according to Ohl, she came forward to her supervisors with information implicating her own superiors in the disappearance of Huisentruit. She says she heard from a source in 2007 who simply said that, quote, lieutenants were potentially involved in the murder and abduction of Jodi Huisentruit. She says she heard from those sources again in 2009 who were able to name names. Ohl claims she was terminated for, quote, not handling the information properly. Late last week, Ohl appeared to get the date of a hearing to appeal her termination. She used the opportunity to tell reporters the names of the people she believed were involved. Lieutenant Ron Van Weird and Lieutenant Frank Stearns.
Is his last name Weird?
And then also a retired member of the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigations named Bill Bassler. Now, Lieutenant Frank Stearns is the same guy who was in the segment on Unsolved Mysteries, who was saying, we've spent a lot of time and effort talking to people who knew Jodi. We've located nothing in her private life that would have put her at risk at all. No dark side to Jodi. She was as all-American as she appeared to be, and to those who knew her. Now, this very guy is being implicated by this woman as one of the people involved in her disappearance and her murder. And she told NorthIowaToday.com that I just want the truth to come out. Stearns and Van Weird, it's German, it'd be von der Weird. They've been working on the case ever since she disappeared. Stearns once told a reporter he keeps Huisentruit's driver's license on his office wall to remind him of her. Mason City Police Chief Mike Lashbrook says that while he's not surprised by the allegation Ola is levying, he isn't commenting specifically on Stearns or Van der Weird. There's plenty of dispute, he claims. She claims a lot of things are going to come out. Then we'll see what that is and be prepared to respond. Then there's this other kind of angle to it from Fox 9 News, which is, it's a Fox affiliate from where, I don't know. I think it's...
Iowa?
Perhaps. They're going on and they're talking about two witnesses came forward with new details that might help police solve this mystery. One has information that for the first time, it makes a connection between Huisentruit and Tony Jackson, a convicted serial rapist who was living in Mason City at the time of the woman's disappearance. Disappearance? And it's got this whole video on here that kind of goes into it. And now this guy, Tony Jackson, he was this dude who was... he worked at this restaurant, and I watched the video, and he was talking, and I can post the video after I post this podcast. I can post it on our Facebook group. He's basically talking about how he worked at a restaurant, and he would meet all these women, and some of them would date him or whatever, and how his girlfriend at the time, he and his girlfriend at the time were friends with this guy, and Jodi, and apparently they would all go and hang out, and he had interest in Jodi, and the guy thought he had interest in her because this guy, serial rapist Tony Jackson, was an aspiring kind of like media guy, like maybe he wanted to get on TV or whatever, so that's why he thought that he was into Huisentruit. But turns out that he ends up raping a bunch of people, this Tony Jackson guy, and he was apparently seen riding a bike at a certain time of night around the apartment at like 4 a.m. and they're saying, well, that's abnormal. And I'm kind of like, well, who are you to say what's normal and what's abnormal? I have a really weird work schedule. Sometimes I go out and do shit really late at night where someone would see that as abnormal. So I don't know. Again, that's kind of an angle on it too, this Tony Jackson guy. I'm kind of really paraphrasing the whole thing. It's better to watch this video that was sent to me because it kind of goes more in depth about the whole thing. But that was also kind of another theory. So you have serial rapist Tony Jackson. They also did an interview with him in this video, and he says some really bizarre statements like, how could I have raped anybody? I work 72 hours a week. How could I have time to supposedly rape somebody? And if I did rape them, why are they still alive? What idiot would rape somebody and then not kill them, and let them live? And he's like saying like weird shit like that. Like, man, you were just digging your fucking grave deeper there, buddy. Just stop talking.
Saying some very Van der Weird things.
Yeah, saying some very flong.
Very weird.
Van Weird, yeah. Very Van Weird stuff. So yeah, that's a thing that you can go and check out if you want to. I'll post it on the group there.
I mean, I can see that being more plausible than the whole police conspiracy thing.
Why?
Because, he was, rapist. He was in the same vicinity at the time. He wanted to get in media. Maybe he had the hots for her and wanted her for himself, and maybe something went wrong, and when he was raping her, and then you dumped the body somewhere.
Those are all good points. I now believe that's more likely as well after hearing your explanation. Because at first I was thinking of the massage parlor in Kentucky with the murdered prostitutes. Yeah. That we haven't covered that segment yet. We probably should here in the future. I was thinking about that story where the police definitely were involved. I mean, without a shadow of a doubt in my mind. Oh, yeah. The police were involved in that one. So that's kind of what got me thinking about this. And also how we've covered small towns, on this podcast so many times. These small towns are just a breeding ground for corruption. So that's, again, why I was thinking the cops. But
I don't think Iowa City is that small, though. Well, I think it's actually a pretty decent size.
It's Mason.
Oh, Mason City.
Yeah,
Iowa.
Mason City, yes.
Yeah, that probably is pretty tiny. But, I mean, it has a TV station in it, so it might not be that small.
I got one of them dang old satellites. Can't be that small of a town. It's a big old satellite. That son of a gun. You put that on the ground, you filled up with water, you got you a swimming pool. Hoo-wee, I tell you what. That's my excitable redneck voice. That's not to be confused with my Hank Hill redneck voice. Just trying out new stuff here for you people and thought maybe you would enjoy it. Now I feel stupid. So what you got, Mike?
I don't really have anything else to say. I mean, it's a missing persons case. She went missing. It's interesting that there were certain things that were not featured on the show, like the key being broken off, the blood that was found in the car. And apparently this is a case that still a lot of people are trying to solve, and that's great. I hope they find out what happened to her. I mean, there's a website called findjodi.com.
Yep. There's a lot of people who have been interested in this case. I remember rumblings of this case way before Eric brought it up. And I don't remember where, but I just remember seeing it. And yeah, you could be right. I mean, it could have something to do with the fact that she was an anchor on the news. That could have brought more gravity to it. But man, I seem to... You know what? I actually saw this on the Investigation Discovery Channel too. This case has actually been on Nancy Grace. It's been on 2020. Yeah. It's been on.
It was, it's a media thing. I mean, how often does an anchor woman disappear? So this is the woman you're used to seeing deliver your news, and then you find out the news that she herself is on the news now, but as somebody who has disappeared.
Do you think if either one of us went missing, they would report it, because we...
Probably not.
Oh. Well, that took the wind out of my sails. That was a quick probably not, too. You didn't even have to think about it. Probably not.
I'm just being realistic. Can you imagine that? Two young men who host some dumb podcast on the internet went missing and nobody cares. Okay.
Friday,
thanks to the
Friday, April 14th, 2017, two men in their late 20s who probably both live with their parents and who are probably both still virgins went missing, and police have no idea where they're at. And yeah, so on to our next story. Yeah, I don't know. So I guess...
Well, you think about it, I mean, there's probably hundreds of missing persons cases, or even more than that, to happen every month or year or something like that. I mean, there's probably quite a few. So, I mean, the news, only, they got to make room for their reality television updates and their updates on celebrities and all that shit. So,
oh God,
doesn't seem like they have room for missing persons cases unless it's something that's really marketable or it's something that has a hook to it.
E.T.
Like,
Entertainment Tonight is one of the worst pieces.
Goes missing.
It's like one of the worst piece of garbage shows that is out there. And they always air it right after the news, like it's newsworthy, you know, like Entertainment Tonight. Guess who Kim Kardashian was seen walking down the red carpet with? You know, it's like, who gives a flying fuck? But I know some people do care about that stuff.
I mean, if Kim Kardashian went missing, that would be all
joyous.
over the place.
I mean,
that would be all over the place.
That's what I meant to say. So I wanted to, at this point, I don't know why, and Mike wasn't aware of this, but I wanted to read this review that we got recently on our iTunes or whatever. And if you want to go and review us, you can.
Negative review?
It's something. It made me feel some type of way. And I don't even remember saying what she said we said, but I'm sure we said it. But,
okay.
Yeah, that's kind of why I prefaced everything with don't be offended, because we're just two guys.
I'm going to prepare myself for this one.
Yeah, and this time she's not attacking you specifically, Mike.
Got the burn ointment ready.
Good. Get some aloe vera, motherfucker. So this person who reviewed us on April 12th said, I really want to like this show. True crime plus comedy is a good chunk of my time off, and you run out of shows pretty quick. But when one of the hosts made a dig about psychics being quote-unquote worshipped in the third world countries, it drove me a little nuts. As somebody from a quote-unquote third world country, also inaccurate and offensive, technically Switzerland is a third world country, man, you're the one saying you believe in magnetic fields and telekinesis. What on earth would prompt you to crap on the rest of the world? Scientific training is actually often better in the quote-unquote non-Western countries, but perpetuation of, let's be honest, racist ideas is why my white roommate from rural Ohio asked me if I know any snake charmers. No, I don't. Turns out some of my American friends do, though. I had to rewind and listen to it twice over to make sure I heard it right. It's a pretty solid way to alienate listeners, unless, of course, you're going for an all-white American audience. I'll keep listening in the hopes that it's just a one-off and hope something changes. Come on, guys, it's 2017. I'd like to laugh, but it's really hard to do when you feel like a group you belong to is being attacked. Do you remember what the hell she's talking about?
I don't really.
When did
were we talking about some psychic thing? Like, when did we talk about psychics?
Well, I mean, we talk about psychics being worshipped in third world countries.
I don't say anything like that.
I mean, like, I
don't think I was the one that said anything like that.
I mean, in all fairness, if we were to take a poll on which one of us said something offensive, it's probably me 9 times out of 10. But I mean, you know, if we were talking about like psychics and stuff like that, I guess when I made that statement, I was mainly thinking of like, I don't know, some parts of Africa, some parts of South America where voodoo and all that kind of stuff is really in, and yeah, you know, I mean, that's like a real thing. It's kind of like a form of religion for them, and they use that
influence. They use that influence to get, you know, to I'm trying to think of the right word. They use that influence to manipulate people.
Yeah, and I mean,
because
if you think
they know that they believe in this. They believe that they're going to be cursed, or that this psychic or this person has psychic abilities and can make their life miserable. So maybe there's a bit of misinterpretation. Maybe, oh yeah, you said third world countries, but like I've said before, if I say anything that's wrong or incorrect, it's because I'm not properly educated on it at that point, and I'm just talking about what I know. I can't talk about stuff I don't know on this show.
Oh, I can talk about stuff I don't know, but it usually ends up backfiring on me.
Yeah, so that's why I try not to talk about stuff I don't know. But then if I do, then, you know, I can only talk about stuff that I kind of know. It's about what I know.
Look, people, the whole point of listening to our podcast, at least, I guess our unwritten motto is like, we're here to entertain you by whatever means necessary. And you really aren't supposed to take this as like a news show or like a show where you can cite anything factual from. Yes, we say dumb shit. Yes, we say inaccurate shit. But we're kind of saying it like we're coming off as like this is who we are, like as far as like real people. Real people say inaccurate, dumb shit all the time, but they say it just on the street corner and they never get called out on it. I mean, I think it's actually kind of cool that people call us out when we're wrong because that, hey, I learned something new, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So that's an opportunity a lot of people don't have. To be honest with you, I'm not.
As long as it's respectful. I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah,
that's all I ask. As long as you're okay. You said this, but this isn't correct. As long as you're respectful about it and kind and courteous, then I take that as constructive criticism, and I'll be the first one to admit I'm wrong in that scenario.
Yeah, but I mean, to do the whole if you only want your audience to be all white American audience.
Yeah, I mean that was kind of.
Of course, that's not what I fucking want. And if you listen to this episode for fuck's sake, and I'm talking about how a pretty young white girl goes missing and everyone cares. I'm not on anybody's side. If you've paid attention, I come off as liberal sometimes. I come off as conservative sometimes. I come off as atheist sometimes. I come off as more spiritually minded sometimes. I'm all over the fucking map with my views on things and how I feel about things. So don't put me in a box. I'm definitely not one of these, white, only wanting a white audience and all this other kind of bullshit. Come on now. That's crazy. So
you're not secretly a member of the KKK?
I am not. And I will go as far as say fuck the KKK. And then when we talked about the Kentucky militia, I went off on that angle. I pretty much offend any minority. I'm pretty sure I've offended any minority, including white nationalists out there. Because I think that any small group that any crazy small group. If you're a small group and you're doing good things for the world, that's awesome. But I mean, I just kind of shat on the Noah's Ark thing last episode. I mean, nobody's safe from my ignorance. I'm joking.
Well, I kind of did too. I thought that was a total bullshit attraction, to be perfectly honest. Waste of money, and I don't really believe Noah's Ark is actually a thing that ever happened. I don't believe some old guy built a giant ark and then rounded up 2 of every animal by himself. How? I have no fucking idea. I don't even know how that's even possible.
Well, not to get off on that tangent, but I mean, my point is.
So yeah.
My point is that I go off on everybody, and it's kind of like what comedian Bill Burr.
Equal opportunity. Equal opportunity.
It's what Bill Burr said a long time ago. He's a comedian. He said, people don't get offended until you hit on what they care about. Until you start picking on what they care about. Then all of a sudden they get offended. If Mike is, Mike's really skinny, so I can talk about fat people all day long, but as soon as I start saying, oh, skinny people look like beanpole, and Mike gets offended, that's because, Mike's skinny. I'm not saying I would talk bad about
that would never happen.
Yeah, I'm just saying as an example, you don't get offended until I touch on something that you personally care about.
Yeah.
And for this, it's kind of like,
Well, that's offended. That's what being offended is. That's exactly what happens when people are offended by something. So
well, my whole thing is if you hear me talking about other things that would it's just know that this is just entertainment, and it's not I don't work in human resources. I'm not running for state office. I have more liberties.
It's unfiltered. It's right, unfiltered, folks. It's uncensored. It's part of what makes this show so much fun to do, and hopefully for you guys to listen to. Right. I mean, maybe we could script things out, but I don't think that would be as much fun.
Not gonna happen.
And also, it would be very robotic sounding, and yeah, I'm not into that.
I mean, the only thing I can really say is I mean, I don't feel like I've gone out on a limb and said anything I've never said anything to where I felt convicted about afterward. Man, I really said some fucked up shit about. I've never So
I mean, we're talking about controversial stuff anyway. I mean, so eventually there's going to be certain topics that we're going to stumble upon that are going to incite some controversy. That's what happens with being honest and sharing your opinion on anything. I mean, I get people getting offended if I just like a movie that they don't, or if I don't like a movie that they really like. So, and that has nothing to do with any sort of potentially racist thing that somebody might have said or I might have said, or something that shows to somebody my political leanings, but in reality, it's not even remotely how I truly feel. It's just interpreted that way. You can interpret things however you want. It's up to you, but
I don't know. I guess I
take everything we say with a grain of salt.
Yeah. And I don't want anyone to feel like I'm shitting on any non-American, non-white, anything. I don't want anyone to think that, because that's complete bullshit. I think this particular country has so many problems. I don't think it's the greatest country in the world. I think that we did some cool shit back in the day. We do some cool shit still every now and then.
We have a lot of room for improvement right now.
Yeah, we also do some fucked up shit, and we did some fucked up shit back in the day. Like any other country or person, we're not perfect. I would like to go to Germany and some European countries and visit. That'd be cool. I mean, I know German, so it'd be cool to practice that. But yeah.
So basically, to sum it all up, folks, we're not perfect.
And to cap that off some more, here's some more negative reviews that I just think are funny to read.
Here we go.
Okay.
I got some more of my lotion ready here. All right, let's go.
So this one's from KB Mac. This one was from June 30th, 2016. I hate to give bad reviews, and I usually don't, but this is so hard to listen to. I drive a lot for my business, and I listen to a lot of podcasts, but this is not what I thought it was going to be. Two guys reviewed Unsolved Mysteries. It sounds like they're recording themselves through plastic megaphones. I tried to listen to a few episodes, but I only made it about 20 minutes before I had to stop. Now, clearly, he's referring to back when we recorded our shit on our old program, Callgraph, which sucked donkey ass. And I totally agree with you, Kobe Mac. I wouldn't have listened either back then. Our next one is from NickRod06, September 28th. 2016, and the title of this is I Wanted to Like This. And then they start off, I wanted to like this podcast. I love Unsolved Mysteries and have wanted someone to do a podcast about the segments on there forever. But the two hosts need to get better at doing just that, hosting. I can do with the occasional staying off topic or adding to a story with what you have heard about it, but the unneeded swearing is so fucking distracting. If there was a reason for it, I would be fine. But these guys just use it for filler. It adds nothing to the segments, and it just comes off as juvenile and childish, which is sad, because other than that, the shows I've listened to have been good.
For me personally, I think the mindset that swearing alone is juvenile and childish is juvenile and childish. I mean, if you really were someone who, and I understand people are offended by that, and to each their own. For me personally, they're just words. I mean, I could see someone being more offended by that when they're younger, but when you're an adult, you've heard it all already before. So I don't understand why. And we're not saying things like the C word or, any of that. So, sometimes I don't think we do it that. I mean, really what we do, if I do it, it's because I'm pissed.
I probably swear a lot more than you do.
I mean, it was crazy. It's like if you see some of my playthroughs and rants on my channel, I swear like a sailor. But when it comes to talking about things that I don't feel need any swearing in, I don't usually swear, because what's the point? I mean, but if it's something that I'm pissed off about, and it's this fucking bastard who raped somebody or killed them or all these, and got let off or something, damn right, I'm going to fucking swear. This is fucking bullshit that some of these people get let off for that kind of shit.
I mean, it could be like a religious belief thing too.
And hey,
blah 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 offends my spirituality or something like that. But
then you just offended. You just offended people again.
I know, but don't listen to it then. But then again, you don't have to leave a shitty review either. I mean,
you can do it. I mean, it's free speech. I'll take it. That's what happens. I don't think we swear too much, though, and I don't think we're that bad in terms of, we have some chit-chat and stuff like that, but usually if I go and chit-chat during the segments, because there's kind of some sort of connection to what we're talking about.
Yeah, so our next one comes from Ha 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 Haley, and it was from March 26, 2017. This one's more recent. She simply says, sounds like a bunch of illiterate frat boys. Obnoxious. No thanks. Now I will say,
Ouch.
I do sometimes sound, I hear the sound of my voice, and trust me guys, my voice sounds way more badass in my head than when I like listen to the actual recording. Like in my head, I sound like this awesome like radio talk show host. But then when I hear the recording, I'm like, and I was like, oh my god, the Unsolved Mysteries case was so scary as a kid. I sound like a fucking Valley girl. I sound so dumb. Like, so
I don't think you sound that bad. I don't think you sound like a Valley girl.
I say a lot.
Yeah. And you know. But I started out like that too. So I'm trying the best I can to try to stop that kind of stuff. And even then I run into that. Some episodes I'm better than others. So but and I know I do but come on. I mean, that's just a natural thing. If I paused, it would be even more awkward in terms of a conversation.
This next one comes from Milk Cowbird, and the title of this, yet again, was I Want to Like It. And then they wrote, I love Unsolved Mysteries, so I want to like this podcast. As it is, it's one of my last resort podcasts due to the host's rambling, excessive foul language, and sometimes what seems like mean-spiritedness, particularly the episode in which one of the hosts goes on and on about a guy's dumb fat face and how much he hates him. Mike Morris, Mr. Moon Pie Face. I don't know why the phone kept ringing and didn't go to the answer machine. I just let it ring. Yeah, it's free, etc., as the hosts always say, but that doesn't change the fact that it is a bit of a rambling mess when it could be much better. Thank you, Milk Cowbird. I appreciate that. And I am never, unless someone slaps me with a lawsuit, I'm never taking back the stuff I said about Mike Morse. I didn't like that guy. Moon Pie Face. Next comes February 4th, 2017 by Abby Prop 7, as meh as can be. Hosts are immature and lack the focus/delivery of some of the better podcasts. They seem like they are passionate about the stories, but often seem more, I think that she meant to write but often seem more interested in talking about themselves. The icing on the cake is that they wander into areas where they are woefully unprepared to speak knowledgeably, politics, law, etc., and the awkwardness is jarring and unpleasant. You deserve better on your commute. God damn.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty harsh. It's pretty savage there. Yeah. Definitely a savage one. But I mean, there is some. Yes, I admit it. We are woefully unprepared and going into certain areas.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
I mean, that's kind of what makes it kind of unique, is because we're woefully unprepared in some of these things, but at least we're willing to try to give our thoughts on it. But I'm trying not to go there. Trust me, folks. I'm trying not to go into some kind of waters that are just deadly, and I'm not prepared to handle it. I'm trying to stay away from that kind of stuff. But every now and then you just end up there, and then you got to make the best of it. As for, I remember that one, the whole thing where we just talk about ourselves. I don't get that. I really don't. That one I don't get at all.
Well, I mean, it's not like the whole podcast is us talking about ourselves. We recap with everybody every single week to say, hey, this is what the hosts, the people that you've like grown to care about to a certain extent, this is what we're going through on our personal lives. And I mean, I think, we'll try to make it a little bit more relatable. I mean, everyone's had, sort of problems. I don't know. I just thought it would be, I wanted to bring up that most recent review just because I wanted to clarify that I'm not a white nationalist. But I also wanted to.
Well, I remember the one where somebody was saying that me specifically, I can't stand listening to him, or was it Josh? It was you. I can't stand listening to his voice.
No, it was me. That was on our personal. That was on our Uncovering Unexplained Mysteries Facebook page. Someone said, listening to Josh's voice after 30 minutes makes me want to circumcise myself with a spoon. That was my favorite. Bad review ever. I just get, I don't know, I
had one with somebody was talking about, like, I act like I'm a know-it-all. I remember that.
Yeah.
And I've had some people say that to me before, but what am I supposed to act like, somebody who doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about half the time? I'm trying to have some sort of sense of professionalism as much as I can, at least professionalism for this kind of a format. I mean, if I sound like I'm a know-it-all with certain things, that's not my intention at all. It really isn't. But anyway, yeah, I think we've gone on long enough. I know people are probably like, "Oh my God, it's all about you, all about this."
Well, see, I just wanted to. I just thought it would be kind of fun to read some of the negative reviews. Now, you know, that's to say, I just read like 6 of the negative reviews out of the, you know, almost 50 reviews that are like 40 of them are positive. You know, like 5 stars, 4 stars of people who, you know, really love the show and have really great things to say. But I just find the negative ones funnier to read because nobody wants to hear, you know, "Oh, really enjoy all the stories. Keep it up. This takes me back to my childhood, covering all my favorite episodes. I hope this podcast continues to grow, blah, blah, blah." No one wants to hear that stuff. That you guys are more interested in the drama, I think, which I would be. I mean, I don't want to hear, you know, that's boring. Well, but not to say that we don't appreciate it, because, I mean, God, I love those. That's what keeps me going. But I just, as far as entertainment value, the negative ones are better, and I think everyone would agree with that. But that's the end of the podcast. If you want to find me and Mike on YouTube and check out our YouTube content, we both have our own solo channels. So it's much like a boy band, how you have a crush on like one individual person in the band. Like Mike had a crush on Nick Lachey of 98 Degrees back in the day. That was his favorite out of 98 Degrees. I was more of a Joey Fatone fan of Backstreet Boys, or was he NSYNC? Oh, it shows how big of a fan I am. Anyway, if you like Mike more or me more, you can check us out separately, or you can check us both out on YouTube. Mike is youtube.com/OCP Communications, and he does movie reviews and Let's Plays occasionally, and sometimes he'll even try food. And then my channel is youtube.com/Dancing with Ghosts, and I do all kinds of stuff as well, which I will not tell you about any of it. I think that's all the plugs for this week. Am I right?
Yeah, I think you're right.
I did the page, I did the Patreon, I did the YouTube channel. Okay. Yeah, so sorry for the delay, folks. Until next week, try to stay safe out there. We love you. Have a good rest of your night.
See ya. Saying, "Oh, we tried to contact the Navy or the Air Force and the military, and they didn't want to comment about it." But he just, you know, he said it more eloquently than that.
He said something to the effect of, "We contacted the Navy, and then they said try the Air Force, and then the Air Force said try the Navy," or something like that.
Yeah,
it was some kind of back and forth thing. I didn't have time to watch this segment.
You've seen it many times.
Oh yeah, I know, I got it. But I mean, it's just, for me, it's the minute little details that escape me, and the devil's in the details, especially with shows like this. Where
the one that I remember the most, the first Ray Munez's his recollection was, I mean, he was contacted because he started this UFO report show on public access television, and a friend of his, somebody that he knew or didn't know, they just sent him a video that said the video showed a UFO. And then soon afterwards, these men in black were contacting him. They gave him this document at his workplace, which looked like it was from the IRS, but it was all like weird. And then he returned home, and then he found that his house had been searched, but the video was still there.
Yeah, that's fine. You can save all that for the podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
All right.
I guess we're gonna. Well, I'm already recording. I have a habit of doing that, a devilish habit of doing that now. Just hitting record. Oh my God! I didn't know you could do that, Mike.
I could do a better one than that because of the shadow. I do. You know. What evil looks in the hearts of men.
Give me a clean one, and I'll add reverb to it in post.
Okay. What evil lurks in the hearts of men? The shadow knows.
Oh, that's gonna be funny. I'm gonna put some reverb on it and shit. I don't know where I'll put that in the podcast, but it's going in there somewhere. Okay, this is episode number 42. Should we mention the...
We can mention the delay real quick. I'll say why it happened. I'll just say I had the interview today.
Well, no, I was gonna say I was gonna say the Kelsey thing. Should we mention that or no?
I don't know. I probably wouldn't mention that. Maybe we'll keep that
under
wraps. Because is it a done deal, or do you just want to? I'd keep it under wraps.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because
we don't want it to be something like we've done, like we did with the other one, and then it fell through. Yeah.
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 True that. All right. Okay, then. Here we go. Here we go. Go. Here we go. Go.